Excused.
Councilmember Saj
Excused.
and Councilmember Stewart.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below are considered consent calendar items and may be approved by a single motion unless removed at the request of a council member for further discussion and action. Other items on the agenda may be added to the consent calendar and approved under a single motion as well. 4A is consideration and possible action to approve the minutes of April 21st, 2025 work session and April 28th, 2025, the budget work session, and regular meeting and public hearing. 4B is consideration and possible action to approve the Town of Miami payroll for April 27th to $111,936.35. Any comments?
Approve all of these B and C.
Second.
Okay. Councilman Moat made a motion to approve. Councilman Stewart seconded. So let's vote. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Committee reports and general demands, consideration. 5A, consideration and possible action to approve the general demands for April 18th through May 1st, $101,163.21. Any comments? Any motions?
Here, I'd like to make a motion to approve April 18th through May 1st. $101,163.96. Second.
Okay, Councilman Moat made a motion to approve 5A. Councilman Medina seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Okay, item 6, reports, recognitions. Town manager.
Good evening, Mayor and Council and public present. Very brief, this incoming May 21st, the Town of Miami is going to put the request for proposal for the HVAC system, ACs, for the police department. It's going to be published on the newspaper. On May 30th, FMI, along with the representative marshals and Blackman, we're going to have a meeting. We're going to be discussing some elements, important elements for the Town of Miami, with the support of FMI. Then this incoming Friday, May 16th, we have a meeting with Gordian. We're going to schedule a walk inspection for the engineering study for the automatic generator system for the Bolívar Gym and the senior center. The reason for this is to be preparedness for the APS public safety power shutoff that's going to happen in the summer. We want to create 2 safety places for the seniors and any kind of individual that will be affected on that shutoff. Thank you.
Town manager, did we have any meetings with CPLG on the inspiration parking issue?
We're working on it to identify a specific day and hour.
They understand they're going to comply.
We can't go into conversations on what's not on the agenda. Sorry, it's an open meeting law.
Yeah. Okay. All right, item 6B, Mayor and Council report. Just a couple of items here. The last meeting, we were discussing the facade project and came to a point in that process where we had to back away from it. Good news is that there was something that I learned. I didn't realize it had occurred back a few years ago, but there was a similar facade project that was fairly successful in a lot of ways. And we're going to look at that. It was called the Renaissance. We're going to see, discuss it and see how we can work that into the facade project we're trying to accomplish now. So we think there's an opportunity there. We'll see how it works out. We may have to make some exceptions, start out with different phases of the work based on grant allowances that we need to have. We'll see how it does. Just wanted to let everyone know that we're not giving up on that. We're moving forward with another approach. And also, I want to mention that the heroes of our Miami High School baseball team are here, and we're going to be celebrating them in the next few minutes when we get up to that point on our agenda here. We have a lot to thank for them. It's going to be an enjoyable moment. A lot of pictures. I hope we brought some news folks here, get it in the local papers. I want to let you know that the ABC had them in Arizona on the news, talking about how they were heroes, saved this woman and her dog that were in the house and didn't know that the house was on fire. A lot of that is just amazing. They walked away from the middle of their game and went to this house, knocked on the door, and really saved this woman and their house. And that's amazing, and we want to make sure they understand we are proud of them. They are heroes. And there was other national news across the whole country. And I have to believe that no other incident like this has ever happened. I think this is unique to Miami, Arizona, and to our wonderful students and their coach and the leaders in our high school. We've got a great thing going here, and we want to make sure everybody understands it across our nation. Okay, anyone from our council?
Yes.
Comments? Go ahead.
I do. So last week, I decided to do something a little different, and I met with Copper Mountain Transit's transportation coordinator, Melinda Baeza, and took a ride on the system to check it out. And man, did I learn a lot. It was really neat to do. We cover, through our little Copper Mountain Transit, we provide for rural Arizona, I think probably the most comprehensive public transit system that I've seen. And we have a lot to be proud of. Ed. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me see if this works. Oh, no batteries. Thanks. We'll get it. So, can you hear me now? So, anyway, yeah, we jumped on board right at the senior center and started our trek. And it was great to see how the driver interacts with the customers. And it's like a little community on those buses. And it was really cool to just watch and learn and kind of understand where they're coming from. And enjoyed a lot of the road challenges that are here, both not only in Miami but Globe. So I can definitely understand why these units are in for so much maintenance. Through no fault or misuse of the driver, but man, they just take a beating. And so hopefully, as things progress and the roads get improved, I'm sure that'll help.
Are we
Ease
still
the-
talking about our heroes?
No,
Okay.
I switched to transit.
Anybody else?
So, anyway,
Let's call it.
so if you're in a pinch, I highly recommend jump on the bus, check it out. It's clean, it's comfortable, and very courteous. So that's my report.
Good one, thanks. Anybody else?
I just want to give a report about Miami High School spring sports. Very successful this spring. I can start off with our varsity tennis team. We did have boys and girls that qualified for state and tennis, and they made it to state, and unfortunately, they lost in the first round. Our track team competed over the weekend, and we had our first state 400-meter state champion by the name of Ryder Guerrero. It's been probably 38, almost 40 years since we had a state champion, and so just congratulations to Mr. Guerrero Ryder. We did have also our softball team made it to the play-in game and won that and qualified to go to state. And so at this time, I'd like to thank our town manager for allowing staff to give us a public escort outside from Miami all the way to the city limits. And also for our town manager to allow our staff to be outside and supporting us on 60 as we were leaving out of town. So thank you, Alexis, for allowing our staff, our police department, for our escort and staff to be out there supporting. So it was a very successful spring season for our school, and hopefully in the fall when winter comes, we'll continue being successful. So that's my report.
Very good, thank you.
I got a question. Who noticed the fire and whose idea was it to go put the fire out? I would like to know.
That's going to be an agenda item coming up.
Right. Okay.
So right now, we're just doing the council reports.
Yeah, I got a couple of things, maybe three. First of all, I got some bones to pick with ADOT. I don't know how many of you have experienced that choke point where they're working on the bridge. How horrible that road section is and what the effect it's having on your vehicles. Tearing up your suspension, your tires and all that. You would think ADOT would be professional enough to have somebody at least put some kind of cover. That's my first gripe. The big one today, not for me, but for the tourists that I encountered on the Apache Trail. Trying to take a shortcut back home, it took 22 miles to find out that the Apache Trail is closed up at the summit by the marina, where you can see the Apache Lake Marina. No warning and we didn't see any other cars until we were 3 miles from there. Then the people coming back started to tell us. So Luisa and I spent quite a while passing that information on to other cars that were coming up. And these cars had, most of them had out-of-state license plates, which to me was embarrassing. That reflects on the state. So, and the third part is that I called our congressman and our state senator, and they suggested that I start with ADOT, which I knew I had to. So I tried to contact ADOT, typical runaround, and leave a message. So I was transferred 3 times. The third time was to leave a recording, which I did. And it wasn't a very nice one. So anyway, I might get in trouble over that. But anyway, I don't get excited. But that one I got excited for the people that were traveling 22 miles to find out that it was closed. On the bright side, I'm already working on Memorial Day events. I'm going to try and keep it again low-key. And that's the one thing. Also, we have an opportunity to make or help a vandal shine. There's a lady that eventually, hopefully, will be running for Miss America if she goes up the different stages. Right now, she's on her second win. I forget the first one, but the second one right now, she's Miss Cactus Blossom, Miss Garcia. Well, I'll try to get more information out there, but I am going to suggest to every member a call to the council to see if we can't get an agenda item for her, because she will be available at the end of the month, the next meeting. I'd like to see it as an agenda item, because there's a lot of questions that are going to come up that the people can interact with her and ask questions. She wants to see more young ladies come out of this area. It's kind of an open field right now, and not to mention that you can have Miss anything. Miss Senior at Miami High School, Miss FFA. You find anything like that, and you can have a Miss whatever. But she wants to see more ladies participate, which brings the odds up to find that talent that's out there, to bring them up to Miss Arizona. That's her next goal, to be Miss Arizona, and if she does well representing Arizona, she'll be representing Arizona at Miss America. So hopefully everybody jumps on board and helps this lady out, and like I said, I'd like to see an agenda item next meeting, so hopefully that'll pan out. So thank you very much. Sorry to hold you up so much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, go to call to the public pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 38-431.01H. At this time, members of the public may address the town council on any issue within the council's jurisdiction that is not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute limit for each speaker. The council's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter commented upon, or asking that a matter be put on a future agenda. Council members are not permitted to discuss or take legal action on a matter raised during the call to public. So with that, anyone out there that wants to come up and say a few words, you're welcome.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Jess Bryant. I am the president of the Gila County Public Safety Memorial Association, and we want to invite you, your council, and your staff, and especially the police officers of Miami, to a very special event on May 15th. It's been in the making since 2018, and it is finally here and popped up right now. We will be unveiling our brand new Gila County Public Safety Monument. So there's approximately 36 names of people who have died in the line of duty while serving in Gila County in the capacity of police, fire, and other rescue operations. So the town of Miami has both a police officer and a firefighter listed on that monument. So please join us on Thursday, this coming Thursday, May 15th, beginning at 11 a.m. in front of the Gila County Historical Museum next to the Chamber of Commerce. We ask that they would come and join us as well. And we will be performing a ceremony with a couple of speakers, and afterwards there will be free food available to the public. And we ask you just to be a part of that. Again, that is Thursday, May 15th, beginning at 11 a.m. at the Gila County Historical Museum. Also, the Gila County Public Safety Memorial Association is the sponsor for our Independence Day events. And so we have many exciting events lined up, including the parade and the Old Town Fair, and also our second annual rib cook-off. So my gracious secretary here is going to show you all the poster for that, and we have several entry forms out there for the various events, and they can be picked up at the Chamber of Commerce, or find our Cobra Valley Independence Day Parade Facebook page, and you can contact us for entry forms. And those entry forms should be dropped off at the Gold Miami Chamber of Commerce or the Miami Town Hall, where we will collect them with their various entry fees. So hope we all can see you on Thursday. We have a couple of invitations here we want to hand out. So we've got a gentleman here in uniform, and leave one with him. We go the rest with his town manager, and he can distribute them to your council and your staff. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. Anybody else? No? Okay. We'll go on to unfinished items. Number 8, unfinished business, I should say. I was talking about the Renaissance grant earlier, and that's really what we have here as unfinished. And we are, as I stated earlier, we are going to move forward with this new idea that we believe is going to be a better fit for the town. We just probably have to go into several phases of that work. So, if there's any questions there? Councilman, anybody? Okay. New business, this is the one we've all been waiting for. 9A, recognition of the Miami Vandals boys, I would call them young men, baseball team for their valiant efforts in assisting with putting out a fire and saving a home. And probably some lives too as well. This, like I said earlier, this has to be the only one in the entire country that's ever happened this way. It's amazing to know that we have our young students growing up in this town that were brave enough and willing enough to walk away from the baseball field and go help this woman put her fire out. The Tri-City folks that showed up there even told them that they were really proud of the job that they did there. So, if any of you want to step up and tell us, please do.
I'll ask that question again, whose idea was it to go up there and put out the fire? I don't know what it was,
but I think originally they had one up to just get a better view of the fire.
Coach Rico, can you come up to the mic and state and introduce yourself, who you are, Coach?
Rico Rowan, Coach here. So I guess to answer Dan's question, what they did that is just run up and our thinking was, I was tied up to doing our baseball line. Is that they were just going to head up there and get a better view of it from the top of the hill. Well, it wasn't until about, I'd say about mid-evening, we had the homeowner Bill Newman came down. And this is when I knew it was really something serious because by his voice, the way he was talking, he was teared up, saying, make sure to thank those boys and give them some recognition. So I guess in order to, for your question, Dan, it wasn't just one person. I think it was more like a team effort. They probably ran up there. They can tell you, fun different or whatever, or maybe something different did happen. I think they just seen it and they just reacted. And like I was telling them, a lot of what they did, people are trained, firefighters are trained on incidents like that. So for them to do that was pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. Thank you.
That's about it.
Those are going to have some district firefighters.
Thank you, We already do.
I'm the one who owns the house. When I got home from the valley, there was all kinds of firemen around here, all kinds of EMT, and four different EMTs there. The Forest Service there. That's the fourth fire we've had up there. And it's because of the dish network people, firefighting in it. They leave their wires on, and the wind blows up, made contact with the live wire. Made a heck of a noise. It boomed real loud. I appreciate it for the voice tone. That's what I want to honor and talk to you about. But they were planning on learning the church revolving. They supposed up there. The other thing I get in mind about the whole thing is, I don't want my name spread or my family spread all over the social media. I think they need recognition that that's the truth. Because that's a great thing to do. But not to put my family all over the social media. That's something I really appreciate.
I trust that didn't happen, but if it did, we would have better avoided it.
Mayor, can we have a photo on it? Can we get you guys up here for a photo shot?
Mayor and council, after the photo, we want to promote the video. There was an ABC. It's available.
Just looking.
The vandals on the field, but new tonight, the Miami High School, well, they may be called the vandals on the field, but new tonight, the Miami High School baseball team now being called heroes after they rushed in to fight a fire that broke out just before one of their games. Well, you hear the homeowner on the phone with 911 telling her about these boys rushing to put out the flames. The team says the woman was working from home, had her headphones on. She had no idea there was a fire.
Me and my boy Bradley were running up there, and we were the first ones on the scene. The fire started getting even bigger.
First responders showed up. They were able to put those flames out, but it's an experience that the team and the homeowners will never forget.
And he was almost in tears. For us to be in the middle of the game, and him to come over and want to give thanks to our boys, the first thing he said was, make sure you tell those boys that saved my house, and give them some recognition. It was kind of a really big event for these kids, you know, because kind of what we talk about is not just being doing on the baseball field, it's being good citizens.
Being ready to step up in the moment, and they were. Later this month, the team's being honored by the mayor of Miami for their bravery, and we just wanted to celebrate them too. Good job, guys. Isn't it cool? Yeah, great story.
Any comments back there?
Dr. Ramos, please.
He knows I'm looking at him.
Mayor? Oh, go ahead. No.
Richard Ramos, 4739 East Vegas Road. I just wanted to say that, of course, this is the Miami way, right? The kids did a service, and I think that any one of our kids would have stepped up. But I'm so proud of this team for their efforts, their dedication, and their hard work. I can't say it enough. They deserve this type of recognition for that type of service. So congratulations to the team. And I just feel like really, truly, this is what we're trying to do with Miami Unified School District. We're just trying to serve other people and make other people's lives better. So congratulations to all of you, and I couldn't be prouder. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, if I could just speak with here, my name is Joe Sanchez. I live in 354 South of Dulles. And Dan, your vice mayor, and I were members of the Tri-City Fire Department. Years ago, Dan, when we encountered a similar situation up on Frederick Street. And we know that the fire started similar to this, down at the railroad tracks, and the wind pushed it up the hill before we could get a unit up there responding from Tri-City with the town of Miami Fire Department. And we lost the home up there completely. And fortunately, those people too were taking a nap at the time, and it's almost identical. But these boys, knowing what we know, Dan, about how that fire, the wind can take that thing up that hill in an instant. And what they did was heroic. And because Dad and I know we were members of Tri-City for at least 13 years, and we had many of these situations. And we can't say enough. And as Mayor has said, for this to make the national youth, there's a young man right there, Gary Lopez, who has had a lot to do with making people aware of what's going on in the town of Miami. And again, congratulations to these boys. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Mayor and Council, members of the public. I'm Jim Humphrey, County Supervisor, District 2. I just want to say I'm proud of you for what you did and the people that you are. And also to let you know that we partner with the town of Miami on the youth program for the summer. And if you're looking for a summer job, I think you have a pretty good resume in time. And so, yeah, you give to the community, and the community would like to give back to you. So thank you very much for what you've done. And if you care to apply for a youth job, like I say, I partner with the town of Miami on jobs for the summer. Thank you very much.
And Joe, if you remember back in the day, the old railroad bridges that went through Miami, they had to take them down because we couldn't get the fire trucks through there. You had to go up those one-way roads, kind of a hazard. So that's why we don't have railroad tracks through Miami anymore. Plus it's shut down.
All right, I think we're ready to move on now. Number 9B, information and discussion only, presentation of utility analysis report, provided the basis for the proposed sewage garbage rate increase. Mr. Carl Bannock.
Yes, Mayor, before we get to that, maybe you want to excuse everybody who doesn't want to sit through a sewer rate study and let the kids know they don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
You're welcome to leave. If I wouldn't tie you up here and make you stay.
We're going to keep them here for educational purposes.
But there is going to be a really nice PowerPoint, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, all of you. Appreciate it.
That was a good call.
Oh my God.
We have to sit through a rate study, they may not start, they may not save the next fire this
Oh, no.
Okay, Carl, I think we can go.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council, and members of the public. My name is Carl Pennock. I work with Rural Community Assistance Corporation. I'm what they call a small utility consultant, and Alexis reached out to me several months ago, asked if we would be willing to work with the town on a sewer rate analysis. And I said I'd be happy to. Just a little word about us. We're based in New Mexico, California, and Arizona. Actually, we're based in Sacramento area. And we do most of our work at no charge to communities. Our mission, our focus is to work with smaller communities, looking at the needs of smaller communities. And of course, one of these needs is to look at the utilities and the need to generate revenue and maintain sustainable utilities. So when Alexis reached out to me, I reached out to my manager and asked if there was any way we could help the community here. And he was happy to oblige, so I was happy then to work with Alexis and Maria. And so over the course of the last couple of months here, a couple of 3 months, we've been looking at some of the budget that Maria's been developing for the town on the sewer utility, and also looking at some of the revenue needs. So really the purpose and scope of the presentation tonight is just to discuss some system background and maybe revenue needs of the utility. What we like to do is present a 5-year revenue analysis approach. So instead of just narrowly looking at 1 year budget, we like to project maybe what the needs of the community, what the needs of the utility would be over a 5-year basis. You might ask why we don't go 20 years or 30 years. It just becomes very difficult to anticipate what events might be 20 years down the line. So it's a very convenient time frame of 5 years to be able to kind of review these activities. But I think it adds some breadth that sometimes the normal sewer annual budget might not be able to encompass. So we do like to look at that 5-year approach. And then as part of that is to look at some preliminary adjustments that the town might be interested in considering. So a little community background. I just did some review of, basically a Google search. The town of Miami, according to the census, had about 1,540 people back in 2020. Right now, it's about 1,532. So a pretty stable population. The population is growing, dramatically. It isn't losing population, which is very good. What I frequently find working with some very small communities is that the community is actually in the position of losing people. And you have a vibrant town from my visits here. So it's good to see that Miami has maintained its population. It has ideas to generate growth and development and just a better quality of life for the community. So I'm very happy to see that. primarily residential, the utility, the sewer utility, the water utility is primarily residential. And the median household income, this is an important number actually, is often the basis for how communities receive grants from different agencies, such as USDA, the Water Infrastructure Fund, the Colonius program, of which you are a Colonius here, the town. So they look at this median household income and compare it with the state average. And in many cases, then they will grant the community a larger percentage of grant based on that. They use a 5-year average. I believe the town of Arizona, don't quote me on this, but I believe it's somewhere in the mid to upper 60s. So the community income here is a little bit lower than perhaps the state average, but that actually works to your advantage as you seek grant opportunities. I think it's also something to be aware of. Maybe folks on limited income may not be able to absorb a very large increase at one time. So part of the work we do recognizes that and tries to phase in increases when they're needed over a period of time. And that's what we did on our work with the community. So just a little bit of background. The sewer utility basically dates from the 1970s. You've had some sewer line updates in 2019. You have some wastewater treatment plant updates from the early 2000s. So you're seeking some additional development, both in the replacement of sewer lines and also in the wastewater treatment plant. And I will ask Alex here maybe to elaborate on that in a few minutes here. But you do have some major infrastructure needs. I think Alexis has done an outstanding job getting grants for the community, but by the same token, you can't always rely on 100% grants at all times. So we do identify some project needs, and we identify what we think is probably a reasonable estimate of what you might receive in grants, kind of a middle of the road estimate. So some of the typical utility challenges that I run across day in and day out of my work is that we're dealing with aging and vulnerable infrastructure. And I think part of this is the fact that infrastructure, sewer infrastructure, water infrastructure is kind of out of sight, out of mind. It's something that's underground, and a lot of times what people really don't notice. They rely on clean water, clean, safe supply of drinking water, but it does take money to operate a utility. There's a very high capital cost associated with that. So a lot of times I think we may just lose sight of the fact, since these assets are underground, that they do require maintenance and replacement. And so that's one thing we like to look at when we do an analysis of this story. You do have some compliance issues that you're working through. I think you've been very diligent about addressing those. Maybe Alexis, you could speak a little bit to those compliance issues.
Mayor and council and public, back in February 2022, the town of Miami received a consent agenda from ADQ. In some areas that need to be aggressive repair and take action. When we started in August 2022, we received information and we started working hard, requesting some extension of that agenda in order to comply financially with obligation. Since the last 22 months, constantly we are in conversation with ADQ and the officers to understand that the town of Miami is working for grants at 100%, like we received for $1.9 million for WIFA, to attack those recommendations. Today we have one of the most important meetings with ADQ regarding to that consent agenda and other permits and amended permits that we're gonna be doing around the town. Why we try to, the focus of this is to request 100%. Because that way, any kind of increase like these ones is gonna be not too aggressive to the community members. Different from the 75-25 or 80-20. These projects that we do and the future projects that we're gonna be working for the wastewater treatment plant, we want to minimize that cost to the consumer. That's what we're doing right now.
Thank you. So, yeah, there is the need to frequently seek some type of public financing for improvements. And as Alexis says, you can't be guaranteed you'll get 100% grant, but you've had a very good track record up to this time. So lack of adequate revenue for operations, needed improvements, and reserves. A lot of communities don't look that closely into building reserves for their utilities. I think you've done a pretty good job, but there's always, we have some recommendations here that we would propose. So your current monthly sewer rates, residential rates about $26.53, and it's $7.5 per 1,000 gallons. You have a commercial rate. I'm going to focus on the residential rate because that's where by far most of your customers are, and it's just I think a good focus for the presentation tonight. But the commercial sewer rate it does vary the base rate, as do the usage charges. So sample maybe monthly residential bill, if in your first tier for 2,500 gallons would be your base charge plus the usage amount of $18.75. So a charge for about 2,500 gallons would be $46.28. I think that is a fairly reasonable amount compared with some systems I work with that have very little capacity. But I just to note that your last sewer rate increase was in 2019. So there's been a number of changes since 2019, and I think most dramatically really has been what's happened to the rate of inflation since 2019. Basically, if we compound inflation since that period of your last rate increase of August 2019, consumer prices have gone up about 24%. So we've had a couple of very high years in 21 and 22. That in part was due to COVID, but really the prices have not come down. They haven't gone negative at any rate. So we've gone through a high period of inflation. We still are seeing some inflation. It's around 3% right now, which has actually been the historic average since the Federal Reserve has been keeping data on this. On average, inflation's been about 3% since about 1920, since records are known. So 3% is actually sometimes a good way to look at a utility, and oftentimes we make this recommendation that a utility would put in their ordinance maybe a 3% adjustment every year, or an adjustment for the consumer price index. You have let that slip a little bit since your last rate increase was in 2019. And so that does, with inflation, both at the consumer level, but also at the producer level, where you're buying materials to improve infrastructure, that has even gone up a bit more. So projecting forward, we need to, I think, keep that into consideration. So really, a financial snapshot. You're doing pretty well. Right now you're about. You're about 200,000 ahead of the game. That's your net system revenue. But I would say I would take that maybe with a little grain of salt, because your 200,000 includes about 200,000 in revenue that you're receiving from the septic receiving station. So if we were to back that out on a standalone basis, the utility fund would be breaking about even. But that, however, does not include depreciation of your capital assets, and it really doesn't take into account your future funding needs and the needs to contribute to reserve accounts. So there is some room for, I think, developing that capacity, that financial capacity for your system to, help meet these needs. So the way we look at it, essentially we look at assets, what's being budgeted, and what's growth in connections, and thank you. Yeah, so we look at these basic three elements: your assets, how old they are, what kind of what kind of funding would be needed to replace and maintain the assets. We look at your budgetary needs, your day-to-day operating costs, and then we look at the number of customers and whether there's growth in it. So for this analysis, we're not including any growth. It's kind of, the population's been fairly stable over the period. So at this point, we're taking the conservative assumption that there's not going to be any additional growth. But if there is growth, that would benefit the system. So that's another reason, I think, when we have adjustments, we like to phase them in over a period of time, rather than saying what's the 5-year need and then all of a sudden, have a very large adjustment. So I underline the phased approach to allow us to revisit that on a yearly basis. So just briefly, sources of revenue. So you are getting revenue from your billed monthly sewer service, and you're getting, again, about that 200,000 from the septic receiving station. That compromises really about 95% of your revenue. So if we're looking at the need to make adjustments, you'll get the biggest bang for the buck there, because that's where most of your revenue is coming from. I would maybe suggest that going forward, there might be some opportunities in evaluating your connection fees, maybe penalties, call outs to the operator who has to go out maybe after hours to work on something. You want to make sure that you're recovering your costs. But essentially, you're generating most of your revenue from those monthly sewer fees, as well as the septic station. So looking at the revenue needs, we break it down into 3 areas. First would be your basic operating expenses. That includes anything to run the day-to-day needs of the utility. Pay your personnel, pay the operators, and especially considering that you want to retain operators here, and you want to be able to pay them a competitive wage as far as possible. So that's where we make the projections in, and looking at the needs, to maintain a qualified operator. There are also utilities. I don't know if Public Service of Arizona has increased the electric rates recently. I do know in New Mexico there was a very large adjustment. So those items come into play, those utilities. And also fuel, maintenance and repairs. Insurance is an item to consider. So these are just the day-to-day operating items, including chemicals and the like. It does not include depreciation, and there's probably not the need to fund your depreciation account at 100% because you do receive a very sizable portion of your asset replacement through grants. So that's actually very good news. But in addition to the basic operating cost, you need to take care of your debt service, and that is basically your current and projected project loan payments. And that includes principal and interest payments. And then the final thing would be the reserves. So we make some basic recommendations here, which I'll point out in a moment. But there are 4 different types of reserves that we utilities typically work with. That would be your operating reserve, a debt reserve, which is frequently required by the lender, and then a capital replacement reserve. And under this, I identified a short-lived asset reserve. So these are actually reserves that last a 15 or 20-year period. And in many cases, the funder will say, well, we want you, in order to get funding, such as through USDA, you create a short-lived asset reserve account. And as part of a lending package, you need to satisfy that need. So you might think of the short-lived asset reserve then as a subset of the capital replacement reserve. You want to have enough capacity to at least cover your short-lived assets, but you also want additional capacity for your longer-lived assets. And then finally, there's an emergency reserve. So if the utility director has to go out and replace a pump, then that pump would, be available. And you would be in a hard-pressed situation if you didn't have a pump or you had to replace a sewer line break on let's say, New Year's Eve or something. So these are some events that are kind of unexpected, but they do happen, and it would be helpful to delineate a reserve account for that purpose. We looked at the basic operating expenses of the utility, looking at last 3 years and the estimated base operating expenses for 25. They're very close to what they were in 24, about 564,000. So currently you're generating enough revenue to cover those costs with a fair margin to spare. But in 26, some of these costs will increase due to needs of the utility.
Carl, can I ask you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fiscal year 23 to fiscal year 24, looked like a significant increase there, 60-some%.
There was, there was a sizable jump.
What prompted that?
I think, in part, Maria, maybe you can weigh in on this as well.
It was the expense for the sludge, and then this is where we purchased that vehicle to help us get that sludge out due to the ADQ compliance. So there was a little bit of work that we needed to do in order for us to not get fined. So that's where the expense came from. If you look at the vehicle line item, and then we also, the operational, we needed, I think the sludge was about 18,000, every month. So that was significant, an expense for that here.
If I may, Mayor and Council, what happened is that when you have the sludge weight with water, your vehicle is gonna have a different pound. So the cost to go to the, to drop it at the, I'm sorry for it, landfill is gonna be higher. If you dry it and take it as is, let's say a week later, it's gonna be less cost. And this is what happened. We need to comply with that agenda for the ADQ, and it's mandatory to go X amount of time in order to comply and show that yes, we have the receipt, here's the information, we're complying with the recommendation from the ADQ. You're gonna see that increase on expenditure. But now, I'm gonna be more clear. If the town of Miami is continue trying to bring 100% grants, we control the pass-through of the increase of the operation. We don't need to send that cost to the consumer. If we can keep the 3.5 to 4.5% of the cost because you have a staff, because you have materials, yes, that's the percentage we need to try to control and send it over to the consumer. But if we can continue bring us 100%, that's going to give it to the community the opportunity to not see those high rocket, let's say $27 per year of the cost for sewer.
We're not gonna go through that process again on the elections, stack it up and dry it out. That was pretty intense driving by there.
Yeah, no, we have a meeting today with ADQ for requesting an amended permit to design that dry bed and in order to minimize the expenditures of the wastewater.
I think an additional area may have been the equipment and maintenance, and some of those activities, some of those costs may have been related to the sludge treatment.
So I'm looking at their expenditures on this site, and under contract services, on the expenditures, where is EUSI at?
They're part of the contract services,
And don't we pay,
$3,000 a month.
and it's a monthly base, right? So what does that figure come out at?
36,000.
Yeah, but where at on that line item? Is it at,
It's all combined.
under contract
Yes.
services?
Yep.
What else is included in that contract services?
I would have to look at it.
Okay,
Yeah, I can give you a detail of exactly where everything is at.
And so on the projection that we're doing on the expenditures, I know we have a contract with EUSI. Are they planning on having an increase also? And is that included in there? So when we do the formula that we are where we need to be at?
Yeah, I haven't been notified of any increases other than all the utilities, but I mean, we can reach out to see if they're expecting.
Yeah, we anticipating that because I hate to have something come in fiscal year and they come up and they say, hey, we're increasing and we're doing this projection for 5 years or 3 years, and then we're going to be back in the same hole that we're in. So it's just an idea just to look into.
They said no increase. They renegotiated. They said no.
We'll note that. Thank you. So we did, I present a funding scenario. Again, this was looking at some of the improvements that you have planned through WIFA, and this may be adjustable. I mean, you may not. What we used when we did the initial work was 75% grant on some of these items. If you're receiving 100% grant, then the additional loan payments may not come into play. What we are trying to look at is some projects that you would have coming up in the next 5 years, assign a grant percentage to that with the assumption that you might not be able to get 100% grant for everything that you do. So there are some projects identified here. It would essentially, under the 75% grant assumption, would result in about 31,000 in additional debt service annually. Current debt service is approximately 200,000 a year. So Alexis, maybe if you want to speak to that a little.
Mayor and council, in that graphic, we assumption is for 75-25. What's going to happen is, right now we have an existing USDA loan. You can see it's almost $200,000. With another future project, having a 75-25, the expenditure of the loan is going to be about $37,000 to that. But at the same time, what's going to happen is the reduction of the USDA grant and the curve is going to be going down. Then when you have any kind of grant projects, it's going to be in the 37,000-40,000, it's going to be increasing. You're going to be at one point, your expenditures on the existing USDA grant is going to be lower. And this one is going to be the $37,000 to $47,000 is going to be increasing, but it's steady. Why we need to go 100% to avoid that $37,000? A repayment for the USDA grant, active grant, loan can be decreased faster. That's what we want to do. You know, the best scenario is 100%, yes. But the mark 80-20 is the best for the community and for the town. That's what we're going to be pursuing for the next 5 years.
And thank you, Alexis. I think it's also helpful to recognize, especially that you may not get 100% grant. A lot of communities are seeking that very same thing, and then it becomes much more competitive with those 100% grant sources. So you do want to kind of build that financial capacity where you can. So with respect to the third portion, recommended reserves, what we typically identify is a 30 to 90 days cash on hand, which means that you would have maybe 1 month to 3 months of your base operating expenses in the reserve account. So that would account for fluctuations in cash flow, maybe unexpected expense. So that would also, outside an emergency, would take care of an unexpected expense. And so you would have that reserve without having to tap into basically an increase in rates. Question?
So you do have, as a recommended reserve, but we do have reserves called the enterprise fund.
Right.
So we do have money that's in there, so.
You do? That's a good point. What I'm trying to do is just kind of look at the concepts here. You have that enterprise reserve, but I'm trying to establish maybe the reason for where that
Okay, you're recommending that we have reserve. We do have reserve. So I'm just interpreting.
My apologies. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So in the proposal or in the cash in the estimate I'll be showing you, it's just showing where these particular reserves are being applied from FY26 on. Again, it's just to illustrate the need to build reserves, and you are building. I mean, you do have reserve needs, which is a good thing. So the debt reserve is frequently 10% of your loan, whatever lending you have. In this case, we'd be looking at new lending because you do have your existing debt service covered as far as that reserve. So we would be basically applying the 10% as a recommendation for proposed new loans as they are incurred. The emergency fund, we spoke with the utility director about this, and again, think of replacing a pump or making a critical repair at a certain time. So over a period of time, you could establish that reserve. You already have a reserve established, but again, it's showing where this might be applying. So looking at about 8,000 per year on that basis. And then the capital replacement reserve, there would be the larger item, about 130,000 a year, which I'll touch on here. This basically just shows the reserve profile, where it came from. If we have a 45-day reserve that we would continue to fund over the 5-year period, 5 to 6 year period, that would imply funding, if you go over a little bit there, of about 18,000 a year additional funding. Then with the capital reserve, the emergency reserve, if you started to fund that next year or continue to fund it, it would be the proposed amount of 8,000 a year. And then we would be looking at the next reserve would be that debt reserve on new funding, which would be a total of 12.5 over the period. Again, the big one would be the capital replacement reserve, and that would be funded basically each year by a variable amount. The total target for that over the next 6 years ending in FY30 would be about $782,000 for an annual contribution of $130,000. I mentioned the short-lived assets below. I think at a minimum you want to cover this on an annual basis because this is often associated with funding and it's often a required amount. So we did an analysis of your capital reserves, and I'll show there where the 88,000 baseline comes into play. So again, the idea is that you want to meet that baseline, but you also want to consider your long-lived assets too. So looking at that capital reserve summary, one way to look at it is to look at the types of assets you're replacing or maintaining. A lot of times if you have something up to $50,000, you don't want to go to the trouble of getting a loan for that or filing forms for grants. So a lot of times the utility will pay that amount in cash. For larger items, maybe up to $100,000, maybe vehicle purchases or equipment needs up to that amount, you would maybe reduce that amount of cash and then start looking for grant opportunities. But for very larger projects, a lot of times when you look at your capital assets, you bundle them together and replace them at one time. So you might have a large project, such as some of the projects that may be coming forward, and you certainly don't want to use 100% cash for that. It would be untenable. So you want to be strategic about how you apply for funding and how you decide how much cash will be contributed. And the only reason cash is frequently required is because funders want to see that you have some skin in the game, that you're contributing something to the project. So that would be a reason that you would make some cash contribution. And it's, again, frequently required by funding agencies. So with all this in play and looking at the assets that were supplied by the utility department, we did our work on a capital asset worksheet. It shows basically most of the assets that you have. And then if we look at the bottom right-hand corner, after applying those percentages, we look at a funding need of about $130,000 a year. So So one of your big needs will be to replace sewer line over basically a long period of time. Sewer line typically lasts 75 years, but you're dealing with a very large cost, and you have to look at the future value of that as you replace that. So that is the idea around this annual capital contribution.
We just replaced most of the sewer lines.
True enough, but even as you replace them, looking forward into the future, you'll have to continue to replace them. So it's sort of like a revolving process. Even for something that you have in the ground today, you have to think about what's going to happen, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, and replace them as you go. So
I don't think I'll have to worry about that.
few of us will, but anyway, that's the idea. And of course, you could probably just get by on funding your short-lived assets at $88,000, but I think it's very helpful for the utility to build that capacity and recognize those capital needs for the entire system.
So my question on that is, my understanding is on utilities, that account is going to be separate where it's going to be untouchable then, is what you're implying, that we do a certain GL for future repairs on the sewer line? Because if we're getting extra money, we're not allowed to make money off of sewer.
It would go into a reserve account, and that would be actually the true cost of operating your business. If you look at all of these needs, that would be a component, at least from a cash flow. I mean, from a sustainable operation.
So you can store that money?
Yes. Think of it maybe as a revolving fund, because you would be using that money as we go to make maybe a cash contribution to a project. So it's a recommended annual amount, but as you build it, you also be taking it out.
So basically, that money is part of your calculated operational cost.
Yes, it would be the reserve.
So therefore, it's just not sitting in a piggy bank. It's actually part of your cost. So you use that
It's being
as far as your
deployed.
daily operational expenses, because you can justify pulling funds out of there as required as the situations come up.
It would be more like project expenses as they come up. They could also be daily expenses like capital outlay within your operating budget. So, yes.
But then how would you build it up then for future repairs of the sewer lines in 50 years or 40 years, if you're using it?
How would you build it up?
Yeah, if you're using it as your capital inlay.
Well, if you don't build it up, you're not going to have anything. And then, if at some period, whether it's a project involving the sewer line then, and you don't have any money to help finance those repairs, you're not likely to get that project funded. So the idea is that you are building funding for not only projects, but for basic repairs of the sewer line or the sewer system, wastewater treatment plant. So you're just building that capacity so you can handle those functions.
Carl, I got a question. I did some research on our capacity issues.
Okay.
That wastewater treatment. And what I found was that we were only using about 14% of the capacity. I don't know if that's gone up. The data that I was looking at was back in 2018. 2019, somewhere in there, but what kind of allowance did we make in terms of growth of population?
We could factor that in. I think with approximately 1% growth in an annual population, you could probably reduce the immediate adjustment by maybe 1%. So I could, develop that a little further, but as the population continues to grow, that would benefit you, certainly. And that is one of the primary reasons that we did not want to look at a very extremely large adjustment all at one time. So to phase that out over a period is what our intent was here. But yes, it would make a difference, and it would prove beneficial to the system.
That reinforces our goal to become a city, not a town.
Right. But as it stands now, we don't know whether the annexation or the growth in connections is going to occur. But that is reassuring, that you would have that additional capacity. And again, that is really one of the primary reasons for not wanting to make a very large adjustment off the bat. So I am showing the adjustments. Again, bear in mind that you haven't had any adjustments since 2019. And so these costs are increasing. And it's probably a prudent thing to look at some adjustment in the near term. And then as, the population grows, as the capacity is taken out, then I would definitely take anything beyond, maybe 27 with a grain of salt. So it gives you plenty of flexibility to make whatever appropriate adjustments are going forward. But for purposes of this analysis, we don't know what the growth in the community is.
What we do know is that there's a high demand right now for housing in this area.
Right.
And it's going to be driven by the mine, copper, especially mines like Resolution. I mean, they are, I think they're going to be doing it this year. They're waiting for a while, 10 years maybe. But when that happens, they're going to hire 3,000 miners. They're going to be working down there. There's going to be at least 1,000 of them want to live in Miami. So we're going to go after that.
Right.
In a pretty aggressive way. We have to. We have to look at it in a way that it's going to come. There's going to be a high demand for copper all over the world.
Right.
We have the mines here. We're right in the middle of some of the biggest copper mines in the world.
And that's a very good observation. It's just, I just don't think at this point we can, make that determination per se. There's probably the need for a modest adjustment in the beginning, and then you can always reevaluate it going forward. But if you're going out for funding, let's say, and there's not that, you have difficulty demonstrating that capacity, then it will probably hold you up as far as getting projects in the ground and needed improvements.
I recall right here, the last census that was taken in Miami was declining, not growing. So are we expecting a boom?
The mayor is.
We are.
Perhaps. Yeah.
We're expecting a boom.
Where?
I just told you, one big example is Resolution. When they start mining, they're going to bring in 3,000 people. And so we're going to have a high demand. Just assume that we get 1/3 of those in Miami. There's going to be some really good opportunity. We got to wait and we got to go after it.
I agree with that. But we're kind of landlocked here and there hasn't been much growth here lately.
Yeah, we're gonna add
But
that.
you can't live without the sewer. You can't live without the garden. So I'm thinking that 3% is Usually.
We'll see.
Yeah, I find sometimes working with communities where you try to factor in that growth right off the bat, and it doesn't materialize, then the community is, I mean, the utility is in a hard spot. So I'm just kind of working with a conservative assumption that there might not be any growth. And you're suggesting that growth is not
I
occurring.
would like to see the growth
Right.
instead of decline.
Right. Well, again, from 20 to 23, it looks like the population was fairly stable. So, not sure what it was in 2010, but currently you seem to be on a stable path.
You know, I grew up here in Miami, and the copper mines back then, in my days, were booming. And the population here in Miami was 7,000.
Right.
And yeah, it went down when the copper mining went down, you know, but it's coming back up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're gonna get there.
Right.
We got a plan for it.
Yeah, very good. It might take, several years, but there is a lot of promise. So, what I tried to show here, or what we tried to show is basically if there's no adjustment over the next 6 years, you are going to go into a negative position where you're not going to be able to fund basically your day-to-day operations, your service your debt, or provide for reserves. And that's really shown right now. You're in a fairly good position with your operating ratio, which means the amount of revenue that you bring in over your debt and day-to-day operating expenses. But going forward, with the budget that you have now, you do need to make a modest adjustment, which was the reason for basically reviewing the utility rates. So without adjustment, you will just barely break even, be able to service your debt. And your debt coverage ratio will start to decline. So typically, a good debt coverage ratio is about 1.2 to 1.3. A lot of funders will require 1.2, so they want to see that you have enough capacity over just making the bare minimum payment. With the proposed adjustments, you would certainly be able to do that. Again, with the 10% adjustment in 26, you would have that very well covered. And then largely, I would take those remaining years with a grain of salt. So if the community is growing, one idea might be to increase the septage fee in septic station fee in some of these other years. Maybe next year, I think you were looking at that. So there are probably some other sources of revenue that would alleviate the need to make any adjustments, or adjustments as shown here in the FY 27 through 30 period. So you might get down to the area where you're making very cost of living adjustments of maybe 3%. If the growth occurs as you're expected, you may not need to make an adjustment at all.
It's coming.
Yeah. But at any rate, that's the idea here. The rates would, I think, still, work for the system as far as any cash flow perspective. If you were to consider that 10% adjustment for this year. And again, bear in mind that you haven't had any adjustment at all since 2019. It might be a prudent step. I think that's all I have, and just a couple of wrap up here. Of course, you want to maintain the sustainable operation of the system. You want to be able to accommodate additional projects as they come along, that you have the debt capacity to do that, assuming that we're not always going to get 100% grant. It's good to build that capacity. And then if adjustments are needed, as we've shown here, you don't want to do it all at one time. You want to stabilize it over a period and be able to evaluate it as the needs come along. So that's it, essentially. Happy to answer any additional questions. Oh, I will say, as far as the key assumptions here, we did identify about a 3.4% cost growth factor through FY30 beginning in FY27. So no change in system connections, no change in water consumption upon which your sewer rates are based, and then, of course, the timing of your revenue needs, as we discussed.
There'll be some change in connections, I guarantee you.
Yeah, and that'll totally benefit your system. So if you are considering extending sewer line, of course, there'll be some costs there. But I'm reassured about what you said about the capacity of the system, and I knew there was some capacity, so that's a good note.
We saw one of your earlier pages, you had 3,000 connections.
Good catch. That was a typo, and I apologize for that. So we're actually at about 750.
I was wondering where you found that.
Yeah, well, that's slipped down on paper, so thank you for pointing that out.
Any questions? Comment?
Are we allowed to comment or ask something, Mayor?
Let's do, I'm sorry?
Are we allowed under this agenda item to ask a question?
Yeah, we can talk about this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had maybe it's in there already. I'm sorry.
Come up to the mic so that everybody online can hear.
Joe Sanchez at 354 South Adonis Avenue. It may have been in there, but our delinquency, the sewer delinquency, one time, I don't know, several years ago, was a couple 100,000. Now, over the years, I don't know if that need has been addressed with the new sewer system went in, the connections would enable us to, turn people off if they weren't paying.
Right.
But was that taken into consideration anywhere in this? Yeah, I don't know dollar-wise, how much influence or whatever effect that would have on some of these numbers.
It would if it was very large. I'll maybe let Maria speak about this, but your delinquency rate is actually pretty low.
It is now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mayor and council, our percentage is about less than 2% of the delinquency. Sometimes maximum can be $2,000 between 12 properties.
That was before Miami got auto pay, Joe. Now we have automatic payment.
Oh, go ahead.
So one of the biggest impacts that we turned around was before a late payment would be a percentage. So we had a majority of accounts that would let their bill be late because they only paid like, I'm gonna say $1.04. So that wasn't impacting the customer. So when we went ahead and changed it, I think it was 2 years where we changed it to $25, the late fee. We had a big turnaround because then people were now they're paying the bill on time because they don't want the $25, where before it was only $1.04. So that really changed, and yes, we have fixed that, and we see progress, and it's helped.
Yeah, thanks.
I know getting the auto pay helped a lot.
Yes.
Because I remember they gave me a big discount if I would pay so much. That was a long time ago.
So you're saying, Mr. Vice Mayor, auto pay as the customer, you have a capacity or ability for the customer to be on auto pay for the search system?
Yes, and
Okay.
it's all online. You can, your account number, you set it up with a debit card, credit card, checking account number. You don't have to worry about paying your bill every month. You can set it up. We could actually help you at Town Hall set it up. We could do it over the phone. I mean, there's multiple ways that you could do it.
Well, I'll come in and do that. Yeah,
Okay.
thank you so much.
Where you been, Joe?
Well, you know, Dan, right underneath, you know where I am.
I know where you're at.
Okay. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Great job. All right. 9C, information, discussion, possible action, consideration, possible directions to town manager to proceed with purchase of 2 police units for the Miami Police Department.
Mayor and Council, I'm requesting to table this line item 9C due to some 2 items, information that is requested by the lawyer. And we want to provide that information before we continue this action.
Which 2?
9C. The
9C.
first, yeah, he wants to see the active contract extension that was done in 2023. Second, the agreement between Santa Ford and our local ties business. They do it, they uplifted for the police unit. They want to see the contract on that element.
Mayor, may I I'd like to make a motion to table the item 9C as per requested by our manager.
Just a point of clarification, Joe. So you want to examine the contract between the upfitter and Santan Ford when we're taking delivery from Santan Ford for a completed unit?
Yes, because there's no information in the state bid contract that shows that that bid contract with the state included the upfit.
I see, okay.
There's a concern that the current documents that they're showing for that state bid expired on March 15th. So I need the new updated bid documents for the state co-op agreement, and then to make sure that that upfit was included in that co-op agreement, because if it's not, then we need to make sure that that upfit is bid out.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that.
Anybody else?
For a second.
Councilman Medina's made a motion to.
Second.
Okay. So we're going to table it for a week, 2 weeks, a month,
No, just a regular motion to table brings it back to the next
for the
regular
next meeting, right? Okay.
We just need a vote on the motion.
We'll take a vote. All in favor say yay, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All in favor, all aye. Thank you. You bet. 9D, information, discussion, possible action, consideration, and possible approval of purchase agreement with the highest bidder for Hewlett County parcel number 206-21-178A, located at Pershing Circle and Pinal Avenue.
Mayor and Council, I'm searching for the approval of these purchase of land for residential use, this parcel. The offer was $1,200, $1,200, and that was the only core offer that we received at this time. your package.
Question, residential use?
Yeah, that partial is gonna be added in annexation to residential. It's for residential use, it's a area they have a slot. It's very small, the space for the land, for flat land.
And what's gonna happen with that line again? I'm a little fuzzy on what's gonna happen with it.
Sold.
It was sold.
We're
Yeah,
gonna sell it?
yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay.
We received an offer for that land.
Okay. I think I'm getting the picture now. Thank you.
So this is for council to approve the
Sale.
the sale of this property for $1,200 to the individual bid on.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve purchase agreement with the highest bidder for the county parcel number 206-21-178, located at Pershing Circle and Canal Avenue.
Second.
Okay, Vice Mayor Gonzalez made a motion to approve. And Councilman Medina seconded. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're down to, call to the council, future agenda items.
Again, I'd like to ask that we have Ms. Garcia, Ms. Cactus Blossom on the agenda next time. Okay, then that, and she asked me to notify her. Okay, thank you, Alexis.
Anybody else? Any comments?
Oh, thank you, folks, for taking that out with us. My usual comment. Thank you.
Alexis, I want to see something concerning what we're doing on that Inspiration Hill with the traffic and the parking. I want it on the agenda. We've got to get clear on that. Other than that, if not, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Motion to adjourn has been decided, and I think it was Vice Mayor that seconded it. Okay. So let's vote. All in favor